who's actually going to get the most out of a 12-inch, 400-watt active subwoofer, and who might be better off putting their money elsewhere? If you're the kind of buyer who worries about whether a sub will blend into a modest living room setup or overwhelm a small rehearsal space, you'll want to hear this. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. When a subwoofer shows up with a 400-watt rating, the first thought is big, boomy, maybe too much. That's the exact hesitation that shows up in a lot of forums where people compare a home theater sub to a club-grade bass unit. The RCF SUB 702 AS3 Malawian Kwachas sits right in the middle, big enough to add that visceral punch to a 5.1 movie night, but not so massive that it becomes a headache for a 10-foot wide bedroom. The real question is whether the extra power translates into something you'll actually notice in everyday listening, or if you'll end up spending a premium for a capability you never tap. Let's start with the kind of environment where the SUB 702 AS feels comfortable. Imagine a mid-size home theater, a 120-inch screen, 2 front left/right speakers, a center channel, and a pair of surround speakers. You've already got a decent AV receiver that can drive a 6 or 8 channel setup, but you've been missing that low-frequency rumble when explosions hit the screen. Plug the RCF SUB into the receiver's sub-out, turn the volume knob a few notches up, and you'll feel the difference within the first few minutes of a movie like Inception. The 12-inch driver moves enough air to let you hear the sub-bass without needing to crank the main speakers to the max, which can be a relief for rooms where you want to keep overall SPL modest. Now think about a DJ who's setting up a small club night in a community center. The venue holds about 100 people, the PA system is a 12-inch main speaker and a couple of monitors, but the low end feels thin. Because the SUB 702 AS is a powered unit, you don't have to worry about matching it to an external amp. You just set the crossover point, adjust the phase, and you've got a tight, punchy bass that can fill a room without drowning the mids. The 400-watt rating means it can handle sustained low-frequency bursts without sagging, which is something you notice when you're laying down a bass-heavy track and the sub stays firm from the first kick drum to the last sub drop. That said, the same power can become a drawback in tighter spaces. If you live in an apartment with thin walls, the sub's ability to move a lot of air means it can transmit vibrations through the floor and annoy neighbors. The unit doesn't come with a built-in bass shaker or a quiet mode that rolls off the lowest frequencies automatically, so you'll have to manage the output manually. For a person who just wants a subtle feel-boom effect while watching a sitcom, the SUB 702 AS might feel like overkill. In that scenario, a smaller, lower wattage sub, say a 10-inch 300-watt model, would provide enough low end without the risk of causing a building-wide rumble. Another practical point is placement. The 12-inch driver sits in a sealed enclosure, which means you get a tighter, more controlled bass response compared to vented designs that can be boomy but less precise. This is great for movie soundtracks where you want the low frequencies to stay locked to the on-screen action. However, the sealed box also means the sub can be a bit tight when you try to push it into the ultra-deep sub-bass range. You won't get the same gut-wrenching feel that a ported box would deliver for electronic dance music. If your main listening genre is EDM or hip-hop with heavy sub-bass, you may find yourself turning the sub's level up high and still not hitting that deep rumble you hear in a club. What about wiring and setup? Because it's an active sub, the only cables you need are a power cord and an RCA or XLR line-level input. The rear panel is clean and the gain knob is intuitive, no need to dive into menus or calibrate with a microphone unless you're a tech-savvy audiophile. That simplicity makes it a solid choice for people who want a plug-and-play experience. The only downside is the lack of a dedicated low-frequency EQ section. You have to rely on the source device to shape the bass curve. If you're using a receiver that offers a bass management screen, you'll be fine, but if you're feeding the sub directly from a computer audio interface, you might miss out on some fine-tuning options. Let's talk about price and value. RCF isn't a brand you'll find at every big box store, it's more common in professional audio circles. That reputation for reliability translates into a higher price tag than a generic consumer sub. The real value, then, comes from the fact that you get a unit built to handle continuous high-power operation, a sturdy enclosure, and a brand that's known for delivering consistent performance over